In this video, I go to the woods to capture the colours of autumn.
Adorama TV presents Take and Make Great Photography with Gavin Hoey.
Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that has everything for us photographers. And today you join me in the woods for an autumnal 15-minute photo challenge. Well, this is a fantastic time of year to come and take pictures. The colours are changing on the trees from summer to autumn, and it's a lovely day. There's a bit of hazy sunshine around, perfect for some photos. Now, I'm going to wander around the woods, but before I head out into the woods, there's actually some shots here on the edge of the woods, and I've spotted something straight away that I wanted to photograph, and it's just a little tiny mushroom down here. So I'm working today with my Olympus EM5 Mark II and with the 12 to 40mm lens. Now this lens isn't a macro lens, it's kind of an everyday walk around lens. So photographing something fairly small like this might be a challenge. Let's see how I do. I'm just going to come down. Now I like to get down to the same level as whatever I'm photographing. So I'm going to come in here, frame up the shot. Now this lens can actually focus quite close, which is really handy because one thing you find with close-up photography, the closer you move into your subject, the shallower the depth of field becomes. So whatever aperture you think you should use, always stop down the lens, use a smaller aperture, get a bit more depth of field. Right, let's see what else I can photograph. There's lots of fern and bracken around and it's all changing colour. There's a bit just sticking up here it's just asking to be photographed really. Just got to try and get in past all the brambles. So there's a couple of ways I could shoot this. I could put it symmetrical through the frame, or I could just tilt the camera slightly and have it diagonally through the frame. And diagonals tend to be more powerful shapes, so potentially that's the best one, but of course I'm going to take both and make that decision back on the computer. It's what autumn's all about, isn't it? The colours here, fantastic. I've got to see if I can get a couple of close-up pictures of the leaves. I'm going to shoot this way, I think, with the light coming through the leaves, so they're rear illuminated. That really helps to emphasise the colours. I'm looking at the background all the time. What's the background like? Is the background complementary? Is it the same colour or a different colour, or is it just blown out white? Oh, well, this looks like a perfect place for a panorama. Nice big wide sweep, and I've only got a 12mm wide angle lens, which is 24mm equivalent on a full frame camera, so it's not desperately wide. So let's take a picture of my hand and then let's just work out the exposure. So the exposure here is about a 30th of a second f5.6, which I'm going to dial into manual mode. ISO, we're going to go with ISO 640, I think. So once that's dialed in, I can then just take a sweep of pictures, plan my route across. Okay, here we go. Starting on one side, overlapping the pictures, round I go. And again, take a picture of my hand, keep going. I don't have to go far. There is a bit of water down here, a little, well, almost a puddle rather than a stream, but reflections. As photographers, reflections are one of our staple things that we look for, and they can give great shots. The knack is actually to go in close. Okay, so I'm going to go and fill up the frame with this rather than going wide. Lovely. So I like this shot. I've got this lovely scene in front of me with this lovely long vista of autumn colours coming through, but I want to compress everything down. I want the background to come a bit closer, and I can do that by changing the zoom of my lens and my feet. So at the moment I'm on about 18mm, so what, nearly 35mm equivalent on a full frame camera. If I zoom into 80mm, which is 40 on this lens, I'll need to walk backwards to get the same shot, and that's what gives me the compression. If you want to find out more about lens compression, check out my previous video on the Adorama Learning Center. So that's pretty much the same framing, and that just helps to compress everything down a little bit. And the height at which you shoot makes a difference as well. So if I get down a bit lower, I emphasize the foreground a little bit more. And if I really get down low, by taking the camera off and making use of the flippy foldy screen on the Olympus here, well, things start to get very interesting when you come down here. And if I change the depth of field by adjusting the aperture, that's really good. Now, I reckon we're nearly done. We're pretty much out of time for our 15-minute challenge, but there's just one thing missing in this shot. So the thing I needed was Sam, who's normally behind the cameras, but if I ask her to walk into the scene, well, then I start to get a human interest in this shot. And that's the only thing I think I'm missing from this 15-minute challenge. Well, that was a really great walk and a wonderful challenge. The colours were fantastic right up until the last set of pictures. Maybe I was a little bit early, maybe a week or so early, but the autumn colours just weren't quite there. So that's where Photoshop's going to really come in to help. Let's have a look. So I've got the picture I want to edit on screen, and it's the one of Sam walking away, of course. As you can see, the colours, well, they're not as warm as they really want to be, at least not to my taste. So I've jumped over to the HSL/Grayscale tab here in Adobe Camera Raw, and of course you'll find the same thing in Lightroom 2. I'm going to work on the Hue tab, which will allow me to change the colours in this shot. And there's really only 3 colours. There's some greens, some yellows, and some oranges. So if I come down to the greens first, I can get the green slider and move it either left or right. If I go to the right, you'll be able to see exactly what's going to happen. I'm affecting that part of the image, but I want to make them more yellow, so I'm going to bring them to the left. And that's going to really make this feel a little bit later in the season. Same with the yellows. Let's get those. Again, I could go to the right and make them more green, but if I go to the left, they become more orange. And that is really where I want to be. I want those autumn colours, those warm tones to come through like that. Now there were actually some oranges in this shot, the leaves at the front, but they were definitely orange. So if I get the oranges, I can move that and they're going to become more red. Now you can figure out what's happening by looking at what's gone on with the colours. The greens have become more yellow, the yellows have become more orange, and the orange has become red. Basically, when you move these sliders to the left, you move the colours one layer up. Now I love what's going on here, but I'm not so keen on this red on the floor. This is all looking a little bit too fairy tale maybe now. So let me open up that image, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to reprocess that exact same raw file a second time. So I'll go up to File, Open Recent, and it should be the one at the top. I can jump over to the HSL/Grayscale, and this time I'm just going to change the oranges. Note everything is exactly as it was before. That's one of the joys of RAW. I'm just going to bring the oranges down slightly so the floor is less intense, but of course so is the actual leaves, and you may prefer that, but I actually like this really strong red sort of foliage at the front. So all I need to do now is just to combine these 2 images together, and because it's the same raw file just processed twice, it should fit perfectly together when I put one on top of the other. So let's come up to Select and All, Edit and Copy, go back to the main image, Edit and Paste, and that puts the 2 images on top of each other as layers. And if I add a layer mask, layer mask, reveal all, and I get myself a paintbrush here, paint with black, let's get a nice big black brush, here we go. I can bring the reds through the leaves, but if I don't touch the leaves on the floor, then they'll stay that more muted tone that I chose. There you go. And that gives me the best of both images. Now what I really like is some lovely rays of light coming through on this misty end of season morning, but I was about a week early for that as well. So I'm going to add some mist and rays of light, again using Photoshop. Now to add them in, I need a new empty layer. So let's go to Layer, New and Layer. And I'm going to use a paintbrush for this, so let's choose the colour of my brush. I'm going to change my foreground colour. Well, it's black at the moment, but if I click on that black and choose a colour from in the image, we'll just sort of brighten it up a little bit. We'll go for a sort of yellowy colour like that. And then the actual brushes themselves to make the rays of light, I need to download from the internet. Now fortunately, they're ready to go right here on my website, and I'll put a link in the description below. They're completely free. Head over, download them, away you go. When you download them, you will need to unzip them. So once they're unzipped, they're going to look like that, or something similar to that, maybe with the word brush on it instead. And you just get your unzipped brushes and drag them and drop them into Photoshop. Now don't drop them onto the image, drop them onto the bar above the images that has the titles of your photos. And that will load your brand new brushes in. So I've got my brushes, they should be right here, there they are, and I'm going to go with the second one in and just click in the middle of the image like that. So that adds in my brushes, but I don't really want them just there. Fortunately, I've done this on its own layer, which means I can use free transform, Control T, Command T on a Mac, and I can rotate it around and put it wherever I like that, and sort of stretch them out so we have some rays of light. Right click inside, choose Distort, and stretch them up and stretch them down and so on. So there we go, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I think I want to just blend it in a little bit better, so let's just swap out for an ordinary shaped paintbrush, and we'll put a layer mask on here again just like before, and I'll bring the brush down in size and opacity. Actually, let's bring that down because that really helps, and then we'll just paint out any edges and some smaller bits in here just to blend this in. And this is where it really makes the effect come alive, when you just knock out a few bits here and there, and that just helps to make that whole ray of light effect really work well. So there you go, there is my autumn seasonal picture, and I think that looks really great. Well, there you go, 15 minutes goes by really quickly, especially when you're outside on a day like today in conditions like this. Absolutely great fun doing photography today. Now, if you want to see more videos from myself and the other amazing presenters here on Adorama TV, you know what you've got to do? You've got to click on the subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey, thanks for watching.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy to use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.